The wind howled like a hungry beast across the endless white prairie, carrying with it the sharp bite of winter that seemed determined to claim every living soul foolish enough to face it. Snowflakes swirled so thickly they blurred the line between earth and sky, leaving nothing but a world of blinding cold. In the midst of this storm sat a small, broken cabin, its roof sagging under the weight of snow, its walls trembling with every gust. Inside, by the dim glow of a dwindling fire, sat a young woman, her face pale with exhaustion, her arms cradling two tiny bundles against her chest. Her name was Eliza Carter, and at only 24 years old, she had already buried a husband, lost her neighbors to fear, and found herself utterly alone with newborn twins in a wilderness that showed no mercy. Just weeks ago, she had still believed in dreams. She and her husband Jonathan had left Missouri with hope in their hearts, lured by the promise of land in the vast territories. They had built this cabin with their own hands, laughing as they planned a life together, imagining fields of wheat and children running barefoot in the tall grass come summer. But fate had been cruel. Jonathan, strong and steady, had fallen ill when the first snow came early. No medicine, no doctor, and no neighbors within miles, it took only days for fever to burn him away. By the time Eliza delivered their twins, Jonathan was gone, and she was left a widow with two fragile lives to protect. At first, the settlers nearby had tried to help. But fear of the Comanche, fear of the blizzards, fear of hunger drove them away one by one until Eliza's cabin stood alone in the wilderness. Promises to return with food and firewood were never kept. By the third week, she realized she had been abandoned. And now, as the storm roared outside, she knew survival was a question of hours, not days. Her twins whimpered softly, their tiny mouths searching for warmth. Eliza pulled them closer, whispering shaky lullabies she had learned from her own mother. Tears slid down her cheeks, hot against the frozen air that seeped through cracks in the walls. "Hush, my darlings," she murmured, though her voice trembled. "Mama will keep you safe." But deep inside, despair gnawed at her. How could she keep such a promise? The firewood was almost gone. The last scraps of food had been boiled into thin broth the night before. She had not eaten in 2 days, saving everything for her milk to feed the babies. Her body was weakening, her hope slipping. It was then, in that darkest hour, when she thought death might be the only visitor left, that the sound came, a faint thud against the door, then another. At first, Eliza thought the storm was playing tricks, or perhaps the walls were giving way. But then came a voice, muffled yet clear. A man's voice, speaking words she could not understand. Her heart froze. Fear surged through her veins. Indians, she thought. The very people her husband had warned her about. Stories of raids and violence had filled the settlers' camps. Alone, with 2 infants, what chance did she have? The door creaked open against the wind, and in stepped a tall figure wrapped in heavy furs. Snow clung to his braids, his dark eyes scanning the small cabin quickly, then settling on her, on the babies. He said something in his language, low and steady, his voice more like reassurance than threat. Eliza's hands shook as she held the twins tighter. "Please," she whispered, though she knew he could not understand. "Don't hurt us." The man raised his hands slowly, palms open. His movements were calm, deliberate. Then, to her surprise, he knelt near the fire, pulling from his pack a bundle of wood and dried meat. He fed the flames, and the fire leapt higher, warmth flooding the room. Eliza blinked, unable to believe what she was seeing. The man glanced at the twins again, then back at her, and she realized this was not a raider come to harm. This was someone who had come to save. His name, she would later learn, was Tahu, a Comanche tracker. He had been following the storm's trail, searching for strayed horses, when he saw smoke, thin, weak, almost vanishing. Instinct told him a life was fading there. Against the risk of the blizzard, he had followed it, and now he found her. For hours, he worked in silence. He reinforced the fire, repaired the cracks in the wall with hides he carried, and prepared food from his stores. Eliza, still trembling, watched him with cautious eyes, torn between fear and gratitude. But when he gently reached for one of the twins, she gasped, clutching tighter. He paused, nodded, and stepped back, showing respect for her fear. Yet the baby's cries grew louder, and Eliza's strength faltered. Finally, with trembling hands, she allowed him to take the child. What she saw stunned her. Tahu held the infant with such care, rocking gently, whispering words in Comanche that seemed to soothe the child instantly. When the baby quieted, a tear slipped down Eliza's cheek, not of fear, but of something else. In that moment, she realized the stories she had been told were not the whole truth. Here was kindness. Here was humanity. Days passed, though the storm did not relent. Tahu remained, venturing into the snow to bring back wood and game, ensuring the small family survived. Slowly, Eliza began to trust him. She noticed how he would eat less, saving the larger portions for her so her milk would not dry up. She noticed how he carved small toys from wood, placing them beside the babies to bring them comfort. And one night, when she woke to find the fire nearly out, she saw him sitting awake, feeding the flames, watching over them all. Unexpectedly, something shifted within her. She had thought herself abandoned by the world, forgotten by God. Yet here was a man who owed her nothing, risking his life in the blizzard to save hers. The realization struck her with such force she wept silently, cradling her children. It wasn't blood, or race, or creed that defined goodness, it was the choice to show compassion. When the storm finally broke, the land lay buried under feet of snow, but the sky cleared, and the sun glistened on the frozen world like a promise of renewal. Tahu helped Eliza wrap the twins, then led her to his horse. Together, they journeyed through the silent white wilderness to his people's camp, where warmth, food, and shelter awaited. The Comanche women gathered around, taking the babies into gentle arms, their voices soft with welcome. For the first time since Jonathan's death, Eliza felt she was not alone. In the weeks that followed, she saw even more of their kindness. The tribe taught her how to make warm clothing, how to preserve food, how to carry her twins safely on journeys. She, in turn, shared what she knew, finding ways to give back. And in time, the sharp edges of grief began to soften, replaced by something fragile but powerful, hope. The greatest moment of transformation came one night around the fire, when an elder of the tribe spoke words that Tahu translated for her. A mother is never truly alone when others choose to stand with her. Your children are not only yours now. They are ours, too. The words struck deep. For so long she had thought herself abandoned, yet now she understood. She had gained a family larger than she had ever imagined. Years later, Eliza would tell her twins the story of the blizzard, the night when death was near, and a stranger walked through the storm to bring life instead. She would tell them of how compassion can appear in the unlikeliest of forms, how love can transcend fear and division, how one act of selflessness can change the course of many lives. And as she watched them grow, strong and joyful, she would carry forever the lesson that in the darkest of storms, humanity's light can still break through. The blizzard had not defeated her. Abandonment had not ended her story. Kindness had. And kindness, she knew, was the strongest force in the world.